I moved back home when I was 28, and it wasn't because I had failed or anything like that. I just got smart. I was in a really tough position in my life. I had just lost my job. My mom was just diagnosed with breast cancer, and my lease was coming to an end where I was living with my roommate. And I was like, you know what? What is the point in trying to rack my brain on how I'm going to make money while starting to start over and start this new journey and all that blah 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 blah. I eventually just had to look at myself in the mirror and say, what is more important? This, everything that I'm surrounded by, the materialistic things like having my own place, all this stuff was cool and fun. It's obviously amazing to be able to say you're independent at the age of 28. At any point in your 20s, it's amazing to say that you're an independent person. And I always wanted it to play out like that, but it wasn't. So I had to take a step back and I had to move back home. But I got stuck sometimes, like I oftentimes got stuck in this feedback loop where I felt like everyone else is 3 steps ahead of me. Everyone is doing XYZ and I just can't seem to get it right. I'm watching people like get married and have babies and buy homes and have these have these aesthetic apartments. If you felt like that before, especially if you are in your 20s or approaching your 30s, this video is your reminder that the path is allowed to look different. Way different, astronomically different. You're allowed to be on the other end of the freaking spectrum when it comes to where you are in life compared to other people. Okay, choosing sustainability over the optics is not failing. It's not falling behind. It's a strategy. It is what you need to do for your life. Whoa, that's loud. And that is ultimately what I came to the realization of when I had multiple conversations with myself after I had to essentially admit that I was not able to sustain the lifestyle that I was living when I had a full-time job. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit here. I really want to kill this timeline fantasy that we have. I was always fed. I don't know how to explain this. I don't know if it was society or if it was just something that I made up in my head, but I know I'm not the only person that felt this way. But I was always fed this idea that by 30, I had to have like this checklist, especially when I was a kid. I want to have a career and a house, and I'm going to be married, and I'm going to have 2 kids. Girl. Okay, that was when I was maybe like in elementary school, but still, I always had this running idea in my head that by the time I'm 30, I'm going to do this. By the time I'm 30, I'm going to do that. I literally, up until the pandemic, even a little bit after the pandemic, I kept telling myself that I was going to buy a house by the time I'm 30. Girl, if I only knew. The checklist is not built for everyone, especially not women like me. Okay. That type of checklist maybe is built for people that have generational wealth or that have safety nets or that have nepotism. No shade, but that's the truth. A timeline only works when you are starting 5 steps ahead of the starting line. Sorry, let me reframe that. A checklist of things you're going to accomplish by the time you're 30 only works if you actually are starting at the starting line by the time you become an adult. People like me don't start at the starting line. We're starting in the back. We're still in the parking lot trying to get to the race. Okay. There are things and tools, processes, systems that need to be put in place before I can even think about marking things off of a checklist. And because it took me a long time to realize and understand that, I actually put myself behind in a lot of ways, like acquiring debt just so that I can go to college, even though I knew I couldn't afford it. But I thought that was what I was supposed to be doing. So I did it. The checklist doesn't work unless you're starting at the starting line. Your real life is happening now, not on someone else's schedule. Those are the things that I had to teach myself. So when I moved back home, I said, you know what? Moving home isn't failing. It's resetting with intention, moving forward with a purpose, with a passion, and actually enjoying my life. I moved back home at 28 because paying $2,000 in rent to prove to myself that I was independent made no fucking sense. I had a bigger vision and I was not feeding or fueling that vision. I needed space to build it and not just be on survival mode all the time. So even though there were a lot of things that we had to go through to get my mom's health back in check, in a lot of ways, I'm grateful for that time period in the sense that it pushed me to get my shit together and get my ass home because I couldn't afford to be not here anymore. I couldn't afford to not be home for another minute, especially when my mom needed me for her health, for her recovery. But that decision gave me time, energy, and capital. And it was humbling and honestly the best way possible. So if you are finding yourself in a similar space or you are going through something like that, maybe you are 30 and you're having to reset, or 29 or 28, maybe you're 25 and you're having to reset. I don't know. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, you're doing the unsexy work that people don't see and that people don't talk about. I'll talk about it because I'll talk about anything for an hour at the wall. I don't care. I will embarrass myself because when you lose everything, there's nothing else to lose. You can't embarrass me. Like you literally, I'm not somebody who gets embarrassed. I've been so humbled so many times in my life that there is not much that affects me anymore. And I will talk about it loud and proud because it's my life, it's my story. But while other people are curating aesthetics or building this fake presence online, you are doing the humbling thing of building a foundation. And that's going to take you much further in life. You're learning skills, maybe you're starting businesses, even if you're just healing, saving money, strategizing, figuring out your next move. Those things don't show up on social media, on your Instagram stories, on your TikToks, okay? But it will show up in your future. There is absolutely no shame in playing the long game after you reset, especially if you experienced some huge, impactful, traumatic event that forced you to hit reset on your life. But now more than ever, it's going to be really important for you to practice delayed gratification, not as a form of punishment, but as a form of like self-improvement. And knowing that you putting the work in now is going to make you so much better of a person in the long run is doing so much more for you in your future than you actually know. So I just want you to remember that you're not broke, you're not behind, you're not lazy, you're not a loser, which is something I have to remind myself often. You're patient, you're focused, and you're evolving. And that is such a beautiful thing. If no one else has told you, I'm rooting for you.